What is the most disturbing thing you've heard said casually? Story 1. I was working at a gas station when I was 17 or 18. The corporate offices were directly behind us, so they would come and get lunch and snacks from time to time. One man in particular always came to my register. One day, when his wife stepped away to grab something, he casually said to me, "I want to tie you up, throw you in the back of my truck, and drive away." It was the creepiest thing anyone had ever said to me, and the way he said it so casually and nonchalant, I quit very quickly after that. Story 2. I'm a pre-K teacher, and one day when I was doing lessons, one of my 4-year-old boys asked me if I kill small animals. Horrified, I said, "No, why would you ask me that?" And he said, "I want to do that because I'm not big enough to kill people yet." Had to report it to my admin staff. They called a meeting with his parents. The parents just laughed it off. I'll be looking for that kid's name on the news in 15 years. Story 3. I worked medical health equipment delivery in college for a short amount of time. I was delivering some equipment from the company to an old sweet couple. Husband was wheelchair bound, with severe issues. As I was doing the assembly within earshot of them, the old man was groaning, saying he had given up and was ready to check out. His old lovely wife was sitting there rubbing his face, giving him words of encouragement. "Come on, Jim, you are the strongest man I have ever known. You will come out of this. You are a fighter and survivor. Remember who you are. You are the man that killed 3 people and the cops didn't catch you." I pretended I didn't hear that and noped it out of there. Story 4. I was a camp counselor during the summers in high school and often had the youngest group of boys, usually 8 to 9 years old. While we were at the lake catching frogs and tadpoles and stuff, one kid picked up a bag with the group's frogs and spun it around and then slammed it into the ground very hard, killing the frogs. My co-counselor kind of yelled at him like, "Why would you do that? You killed them." The kid responded with this weirdly sick smile. "I kill things all the time. I kill rats. I kill squirrels. I kill snakes. I kill dogs. I even killed a cat once when I caught it." Everyone was kind of stunned by this. Even the other kids were creeped out and nobody seemed to respond for a long few seconds. My co-counselor and I were like, "Okay, that's enough lake for today." The kid was weird. He didn't have many friends and we thought he was bullied because he got picked on early on that summer, and we later found out beat the shit out of the kid who picked on him. But it turned out the kids knew better than us that he was a complete psycho. I don't know what happened to him. He moved away so didn't come back to camp after that year, but I'm convinced he'll end up in a news headline someday. Story 5. Met a fellow teacher who was around 67 for coffee, and he casually said, "When I was 30, I was sleeping with a load of 13-year-old girls. They were just throwing themselves at me." I left shortly after, walked back to the school, and informed the owner that if this man taught children, I'd quit on principle. Turns out he had already been banned for pinching a kid's nipple. Story 6. I had this Indian classmate, and we would occasionally cycle back home together from school. During one of these trips home, he casually dropped that he killed someone in a car accident back in India. He got arrested, but since he knew the right people there, he managed to have someone take his place in prison for him for the right price. To be fair, the guy was a bit crazy, but this still shocked me. Story 7. I was on a train one time, and across the aisle from me was a young father, his wife or girlfriend, and their 2 twin baby girls in a double stroller. A dude gets on the train, and it's like a reunion. They're doing the whole, "Hey, how you been" thing. He's kneeling on the ground, playing with the girls, and talking to them in a baby voice. Dad says to him, "Hey, you ever see so-and-so?" And without missing a beat, drops the baby voice and says, "We had to fuck him up." Bashed in his knees with the butt end of a shotgun. Goes right back to telling the girls how cute they are. Mom and Dad didn't seem fazed at all. I didn't get the whole story, but it sounded like snitches get stitches kind of thing. Story 8. Was at the end of a season event for my kid's baseball team when he was little. The coaches brought Italian ice for everyone. Mom has just served her kids and husband and comes back with her own. As she's sitting down to eat, I hear my husband loud whisper behind her something like, "Absolutely not. You don't need any more calories." I just watched her face fall. I can't imagine what their marriage must look like behind closed doors and what life must be like for her. Heartbreaking. Note that this woman was already probably a size 2 at most, so this was just not a scenario where there were serious weight-related health problems. This guy was a jerk, and this really wasn't the first time that season, but his reminders that they aren't living up to his standards were usually aimed at his kids on the field. I try to assume the best of people, but that guy sucked. Story 9. I don't like animals. They make me do mean things. My cousin, who I met twice, then never again because we found out he was killing kittens from his dad's farm for fun and progressively moved to chickens, and eventually got caught mid-attack on one of the hens. The cousin was 16 when I met him. I was in my early 20s and he nearly towered over me. Dude scared the hell out of me, not gonna lie. Story 10. There was this dude in high school who ended up getting arrested and is now a registered sex offender for jacking off in class while putting his hand on a girl's shoulder. But before that, there was one day he was talking about how annoying a certain teacher was, and verbatim, he said, "I wish I could travel back in time to when she was a little girl, choke her and rape her, and say, 'Your future self did this to you. You deserve it.'" Story 11. I braked the neck of my ex-girlfriend's pet snake. She thought it just died sleeping. That's the price of breaking up with me. A dude eating his Kit Kat and trying to have a conversation with me on the train. Story 11. Was talking about how many cats my mom had while I was growing up. A friend of mine said she would have been tying them up in bags and dropping them in the river like it was something you just do with cats. Story 12. Started a new job and struck up a conversation with a fellow employee. Made small talk and she told me about her grandchildren. She then says she tells them if they misbehave while they're at her house, she will punch them in the face. I thought she was joking, but no, she said it again. I will punch them in the face. What? Story 13. Somebody I work with in college stated that he went to a sleepover with his younger brother to a close friend's house, and later that first night, the friend attempted suicide in the bathroom, and would have been successful had the younger brother not caught him. Later, the dude I work with also stated that he was being called a bad friend because he didn't let it become successful. Dark shit. Still not even sure if I believe his story though. Story 14. Worked on an island in Southeast Asia a while back. Someone came into work and asked to put up posters. After she left, I saw that they were of a friend of hers that had been missing for 3 weeks from an island nearby, a tourist. A boss of mine, a local man from the capital city who grew up in gangs, said, "It's either he doesn't want to be found or he's dead. Either way, they'll never find him." I said, "What makes you say that?" He looked at me with a menacing grin. "The best way to kill someone around here is to use truck tires. You take them to the jungle, beat them, tie them up, and burn them. Burn so hot there's nothing left." I don't think he's ever done it before, but he definitely knows people that have. Story 15. Scientists are so mean to each other. Why are they always trying to prove each other wrong? She followed this with, "I saw a study that said praying over your water makes it taste better. The molecules align into little turtle shapes." This was a grown-ass, seemingly healthy young woman. I know this one isn't evil or violent, but it's the one that keeps me up at night. What if most people think like this? What if I actually think like this and I'm the one that's totally out of touch? Scary shit, man. Story 16. Many years ago, I was an assistant manager at a tobacco shop. We had one customer. I cannot remember his nickname, but I do remember his name. Ricky Ray last name. He was a Vietnam-era vet. I had asked one of our other customers, she worked at the VA, about him because his behavior was so off. I got out of him that he was stateside and was a Marine. When the VA lady got back to me, she said that there were several Ricky Ray last names from that time that were stateside, and 2 had been since seen for mental health. My Ricky Ray last name was one of them. I had asked her to check up on him because he came in one day like normal to buy his clove beaties that he said kept the spirits away, but we were out. He conversationally started telling me about the demon woman that slept in his bed sometimes. She wasn't a human. She would come into his apartment sometimes and break his plates and sleep in his bed. He said if he could get the magic from the beaties, she'd start letting the bugs out of her stomach, and then he'd be in a real trouble. He said, "I guess I'll have to go home and kill her," as if someone was accepting the fact that they'd outgrown their favorite shirt and needed to buy another. Turned out Ricky Ray was batshit, but never violent. Story 17. I was smoking a blunt with my girlfriend's brother's girlfriend and her younger cousin. As we were smoking, the younger cousin says to the brother's girlfriend that this reminds them of a funny story about their stepdad. They look at each other and start laughing, and me making convo was like, "What funny story?" Brother's girlfriend was like, "The story we hear was drunk and acting crazy." Brother's girlfriend then proceeds to tell me in vivid detail how her stepdad kidnapped her, her mom, and younger cousin while drunk off his ass. He had them all in the car, was speeding and threatening to kill everyone by driving off the road and hitting something. So, brother's girlfriend and younger cousin are laughing their asses off while I just sit there stoned with a shocked look on my face. They asked what was wrong, and I said, "I'm still waiting for the funny part." They start laughing again and say, "It wasn't funny at the moment, but looking back now, it was funny." To which I said, "That doesn't sound like a funny story. It sounded like y'all got kidnapped and almost died." They just kept laughing. Story 18. Quite recently, a friend's boyfriend. We were all finishing with a climbing session, and she fell from a big height, felt it in her upper spine. We were surrounding her, telling her to be careful, checking if she had a concussion, etc. She was a bit shaken. Her boyfriend then said jokingly, "If you die, I'll just freeze your body and use it for sex, haha." Everybody froze. She laughed feebly and awkwardly. We've told him several times he's being a sexist jerk. She won't leave him. She tried once, but he manipulated her into coming back. These days, I can tell he doesn't understand why we're all avoiding him. He wonders why he has no friends and blames snowflake culture sometimes. Absolute dick who thinks he's a good person. Story 19. Sitting on the bus with these two youngish lads behind me, around 19 and 20, a young woman got on the bus and sat in front of me. One dude turns to the other dude and says, "Oh shit, I'd hold a knife to that," loud enough for me and the girl to hear. She gets off a few stops later and they do too. It's a few stops early for me, but I got off as well just to make sure they didn't follow her. Thankfully they didn't. I wished I just said something at the time and always regret that I didn't. I probably would these days though. Story 20. Worked with two men about 7 years ago who had a very casual conversation about getting teenage girls drunk at a local bar and seeing how long they could remain standing before they passed out. They realized I and my manager were listening to every word they were saying and tried claiming that they hadn't done anything nasty to them. I still called the police anyway. I don't think they got prosecuted or anything like that, but it sure made them shit themselves. Plus, them getting sacked was a nice wee Brucey bonus. Story 21. I come from Asia where sex is pretty taboo, so my roommate was bragging about how he fucked a girl. He has 3 other girlfriends, by the way. Also, he's a lovable, popular guy, but he is a monster, and called that girl a slut and stupid little bitch for sleeping with him. He took a bunch of videos and photos of them having sex and the girl naked sleeping and boasted about how he will spread this and send it to her future husband if she intended to get married, to let the guy know what a stupid slut she is. I fucking hate that guy, but everyone loves him. Story 22. I was dating a new girl, met her at a party. I was in her house, I walked to the bathroom, her father was on the phone, said to whoever he was on the line with, "My daughter's new boyfriend is from Queens, I think he's a fucking Jew. Should I turn on my oven?" This was in 1979. By the way, I am Irish Catholic. Needless to say, I knew I was not hanging around for long. Story 23. I was at my neighbor's party. Some of her old friends were there. I had never met them before. All of them are 50-year-old plus ladies, much older than me. They planned on going clubbing. I was about to head home. One of the friends asked them to call a mutual friend for a ride and basically explained to me, I don't want to end up in a taxi with a black driver. Story 24. My mom and I were out to breakfast and waiting for a table. An older man kept staring at my mom, and when she noticed, he told her, "Oh, I was just reading your shirt." "Oh, okay, no problem." We relaxed a little, just in time for him to add, "Actually, I was looking at your breasts." Thankfully, we got our table not too long after that, and I didn't have to deal with Mr. Peeper for long, but wow. Story 25. I was casually chatting with a contractor who was working for me. He mentioned his ex-wife wouldn't talk to him at all and proceeded to tell me why. They had already had 3 kids and his wife wanted more. So while she was out from anesthesia after delivering their 3rd kid, he asked the doctor if there was any way to stop another pregnancy. And the doctor said that if he just untied her tubes, she could always get them untied. But if he cut them in 2 locations, she would never be able to reconnect them. Permanent solution. So he gave the doctor the okay. This guy genuinely saw nothing wrong with what he did. He looked at me like, women, am I right? I realized at a gut level that day that genuine evil exists, and that it'll smile and shake your hand and you'll be none the wiser most of the time. I had to take the morning off work after that. Story 26. When I was 16, I worked for a fast food chain. I was closing alone with the closing manager. He was probably 5 to 6 years older than I was. I was reaching over the prep table to clean it, and he came up behind me, pressed against me, and told me he wanted to bend me over the table and fuck me. I told him if he didn't get his hands off me, I would cut something off him and get him fired. Then I left immediately and didn't finish my shift. I told the restaurant manager and he was fired. Story 27. I was in an accident once and was hospitalized. The accident left me severely disfigured. I was out of my mind on pain meds when I arrived at the hospital and told my family to call my girlfriend and let her know what happened and where I was. My mom called my girlfriend, and my sister, not knowing the particulars of my life, called my ex. Neither knew the other had called, and both ended up showing up. They arrived within an hour of one another while I was asleep. Since someone was there with me, it gave my family a chance to go home and take a break. So I woke up to my ex and my girlfriend talking to one another. Obviously, my girlfriend was mad my ex was there, and things got heated between the two. My ex, being level-headed, suggested they step into the hall since I was half awake and in no condition to deal with the drama. As they're arguing in the hall, voices are being raised until finally a nurse comes to rein the situation in. The nurse breaking them up made my girlfriend leave. As she was leaving, she yelled, "You can have his ass. It's not like I want to be with some burnt-up, scarred dude anyway. He's fucked." At this point, I was still bedridden and hadn't seen a mirror. I was aware my body was fucked, but had no idea what I actually looked like. Hearing that was such a gut punch, and it really messed with my head at the time. Story 28. During the height of COVID, there was a lot of hate crimes being committed against Asian Americans. I remember talking to my dad about it and how fucked up it was, and he said smugly, well, that's the price they have to pay. People are angry and I don't blame them. Zero empathy, almost immediate dehumanization towards a group of innocent people. I don't talk to my dad anymore. Story 29. Be thankful I won't rape you. From a guy who approached me at a gas station trying to get my number. I just reached to get gas, not threatened with sexual assault. Story 30. I helped out this East Asian fellow standing in front of me at the grocery store with some change to pay his bill. He looked at me and said, "Don't drink Coke in December," then walked away. It always bothers me.